Okay, so when you're sending missions to the moon or Mars that cost billions of dollars, failure is, well, it's just not an option. But how do you handle the massive risk that comes with using brand new, totally groundbreaking technology? Turns out, NASA developed a kind of secret ruler, a simple yet absolutely revolutionary way to measure innovation. So what is this secret ruler, and how did it completely change the game for NASA? Let's get into it.
I mean, just imagine this for a second. You've got two different pieces of tech. One is a workhorse, it's flown a dozen times, you trust it. The other one? It's only ever worked inside a lab. So how in the world do you decide if that new invention is actually ready for the brutal reality of space? This was the exact question that was haunting NASA during its golden age of exploration.
So let's jump back in time to the 1970s. We are right in the middle of the Apollo missions. Humanity is taking its first steps on the moon, and the super ambitious space shuttle program is just getting off the ground. The stakes could not have been higher. We're talking immense budgets and, of course, human lives on the line. NASA was pushing the limits of what was possible, and that created a huge internal problem.
This slide really boils down the core issue they were grappling with. On one hand, you have your flight-proven tech. It's reliable, it's dependable, it's a definite go. But then on the other hand, you've got these incredible new prototypes that could change everything. The problem was there was no standard way to answer that big looming question mark. That made it almost impossible to evaluate risk in a consistent way. And this led to, well, communication chaos. You had engineers, managers, and the top decision makers all trying to talk about hundreds of different technologies, but they were all missing a common language. You see, one engineer's "it's almost ready" was another manager's "that is way too risky." They were literally trying to build the future without a shared blueprint for readiness.
But right in the middle of all this confusion, a simple but truly brilliant idea started to form. And it wasn't a new kind of rocket engine or some fancy computer, it was a completely new way of thinking.
The light bulb moment really came from a NASA engineer named Stanley Sodden. He figured out that the problem wasn't the technology itself. It was the totally subjective way they were all talking about it. He saw this urgent need for an objective, shared framework, basically a universal ruler, to measure how mature any given invention really was.
And this is what he came up with: the Technology Readiness Level, or TRL for short. It's just a systematic scale designed for one main purpose: to assess and communicate exactly how far along a piece of tech is on its journey, from a simple idea to something that's totally mission-ready. It was a way to take the risk out of innovation and give everyone a clear reason to invest in new ideas.
So how does this 9-level scale actually work? Think of it like a clear roadmap. At TRL1, you've basically just got an idea sketched out on paper. Jump to the midpoint, TRL5, and now you've actually built a component and you're testing it in a lab that simulates the real environment. As you climb higher up the ladder, the tests get more and more realistic, until you hit the peak, TRL9. That means your tech has actually flown and worked perfectly in space. It's a crystal clear path from A to Z.
But an idea is one thing. Turning it into a solid, official system that absolutely everyone uses, that's a whole other challenge. So how did this simple concept become the global standard that it is today?
Well, Stanley Sodden first threw the idea out there way back in 1974. But it was really over the next couple of decades that another NASA manager, John C. Mankins, grabbed the concept and hammered it into the detailed, formalized 9-level system we know today. His work was absolutely crucial in defining each level with real precision, turning it from just a good idea into a powerful, practical management tool.
And this is such a great example of why it's so important to build on good ideas. Sodden had that initial spark, right? But it was Mankins who refined it, gave it that solid structure, and made it practical enough for everyone to use. It's his version of the 9-level scale that's become the gold standard all around the world.
And what started as a fix for an internal NASA problem, well, it didn't stay internal for very long. The power and the elegant simplicity of the TRL scale were just too good to keep under wraps. It pretty quickly became a universal language for innovation.
And its adoption has been massive. The U.S. Department of Defense uses it to manage risk in their super advanced tech projects. The European Space Agency relies on it to coordinate these incredibly complex international missions. Even the European Commission uses it to decide which research projects are going to get funding. This simple scale became a global tool for making progress.
Just think about the power in that for a moment. Just 9 simple levels.
This single scale lets these massive, complex organizations all over the globe coordinate on the very cutting edge of science and technology. It gets engineers in Houston speaking the exact same language of readiness as researchers in Paris. It's what makes it possible to collaborate on and fund the world's most ambitious projects.
So here it is, the key takeaway from this whole story. The technology readiness level scale is just this powerful reminder that the most world-changing inventions, they aren't always physical things like rockets or robots. Sometimes they're simply new frameworks for thinking and better ways for us to communicate.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. NASA solved a billion-dollar problem with a simple 9-step scale. It really makes you wonder, what's the next simple, elegant idea out there that's just waiting to completely change our world?